everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to my channel if you are brand new, and welcome back if you have paid me a visit before. My name is Backyard Bullion and I like to talk about gold and silver. And this week we're going to have a ponderous, meandering, leisurely ramble around a very interesting topic, which is, can gold and silver stand the test of time? It's a topic which I've thought about talking about in this last week, and it stems from the argument that I hear so often, in fact that I've used many a time before on this channel, that gold and silver have got 5,000 plus years worth of history behind them as precious metals, as coveted, valuable assets by human beings, and that proves that they will be valuable in the future. So I'm going to put that to the test. I'm going to present some thoughts, some theories, some interesting discussion topics today around that for us to have a think about in this modern world, because there's no arguing that this world has changed considerably in the last 5,000 years. It's changed considerably in the last 100 years, and even more so in the last 30 years. So today, just a little bit of a devil's advocate approach to whether or not these shiny things you see in front of us will actually hold any real value in the future. Now, of course, what I'm talking about today are just my own thoughts and opinions. It's meant for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you what you should or should not do with your money, gold or silver. I'm simply having a bit of a ramble so that we can get some interesting discussion going on down in the comment section. So, disclaimers out the way. Let's start at the beginning. Gold and silver, of course, we all know gold and silver have been coveted by human beings for centuries, millennia. Many a war has been fought over wealth and gold and silver, and it's been used in currency form for gosh knows how many years, 5,000 plus years, or maybe even more, that we haven't discovered from the archaeological record yet. It's evident that it is coveted by human beings, and that is one of the main arguments as to why gold and silver will be continually valuable in the future. But the world has changed absolutely considerably in the last 5,000 years. Now, of course, it evolved in terms of how one used gold and silver. Of course, currencies were currencies back then, but, there were assets as well. People would have gold rings, gold jewelry, gold necklaces, and those would be the physical assets that one could use almost as a currency because the metal itself was valuable. And then, of course, in the relatively modern times, in sort of 16, 17, 1800s, coins became a lot more, they were a lot more commonplace, and standard weight coins and the like kind of came about, basically. And you have these type of coins here that you might see from the 1800s. Of course, we've got the old kind of British crowns. I've just got some of these out to have a play with. And these were the kind of coins of the era, and they were made of silver. They were made of that precious metal, and governments had their currencies backed on what was called the gold standard. So, these were worth a certain amount of money in their weight in silver, and you could go to your bank and take in your banknotes, and you could get out that amount in gold or silver. That was what it was all about. But of course, the world evolved, and I guess the main crux of my argument, which I'm putting to you today, is part of the reason why the world has evolved in relation to gold and silver is, in my opinion, down to population growth and the fact that the population in the world has changed considerably. And that has meant that the ratio between which there is silver and gold to humans has also changed quite considerably. Now, in the 1800s, the population was roughly 1 billion. Around the early 1900s, 1920s-ish, it was around 2 billion, but now we're at 7.7 billion. So there's been a huge, huge shift. And one of my big kind of arguments here is, well, you look back at the traditional amount of silver that was a daily wage. And now this is obviously a big, giant, chunky bar, but you would get a lump of silver perhaps if you were back in ancient times, or it would be a kind of little, Greek, it would be a drachma, or the Roman times it would be a denarii, I think it was called. So you would get your 2.1 grams for each person per day, and that was kind of the rough average. Looked around on various different sources, and 2.1 grams seems to be about that sort of daily average. Now, if you equate that into today's equivalent for the daily wage that we get here, of course it's not 2.1 grams, because 2.1 grams is only worth about 80p here in the UK. So a daily wage of 80p is just not quite right. So of course there's a huge shift in ratio there. And that's in part down to kind of population growth, of course. You know, there's more people now than there is silver that's available. And if we take that 2.1 grams, and this is a little bit of a mind-blowing thing here. If we abandoned all fiat currencies and we just paid every single person on the planet the same wage in silver. Now, of course, that's quite dystopian, and it's quite, it's quite like communism almost. You know, pay everybody the same wage from that communal pot. But this is a thought-provoking exercise. If we take that 7.7 billion people, 2.1 grams of silver per day per person, that would be 520 million ounces of silver needed per day. That's per day. Now, bear in mind that there's roughly 3.5 billion ounces of silver in existence that's been mined. Of course, there's loads more that hasn't been mined yet, but 3.5 billion ounces that have been mined. That's only 7 days worth of supply. So that's my argument here, that there are too many people for silver to be that currency, which is why we have seen governments abandon that gold standard. They have moved away from creating their currency that you would use on a day-to-day basis to pay labourers. You don't pay labourers in silver. You know, when I go to work, I don't get paid in one of these coins anymore. I certainly don't get paid in Britannias. You know, it's a complete disconnect. We don't have the gold standards anymore, and that is simply because there isn't enough gold and silver to go around to pay all of the people out there, which is really interesting, I think. And combine that, of course, with industrial consumption of silver, because the world has changed so much in that sense as well. But silver, in its raw form, silver bullion, is used hugely in industry, and couple that 7 days supply is really not very much. And I read somewhere that something like 700 million ounces of silver brought out of the ground in the last year, I think it was, and that's just over a day and a half's worth of supply for this scenario where we're paying everybody 2.1 grams. So of course, the world has changed in that sense, and we don't use silver and gold as a currency anymore, and we use fiat instead. We use digital and physical actual fiat currencies to get by in the world, and it's that is the nature of the world. So how does that relate to silver, and whether or not silver and gold can stand that test of time? So my argument here is, if currencies collapse, if currencies disappeared tomorrow, if we did not have any fiat currencies anymore, there simply would not be enough gold and silver to go around for the whole world to supply itself with those pieces of silver for wages, for purchasing things. And to a certain extent, I guess we can see that in action in various different countries around the world. I've done a video on Venezuela in the past, and how gold and silver there are being used as that kind of currency. Basically, they've been used as that form of currency for people to get their supplies, but not everybody has it. Not everybody was able to get it before the situation happened where they would need it. And even if they were able to, there would not have been enough gold and silver for everybody in Venezuela to maybe get what they would need in terms of a long-term supply for their necessities. So that means it could potentially not be very valuable in the future. There must be another solution. How are 7.7 billion, how are 8, 9, 10, 12 billion, which is forecast in 50, 100 years time, going to cope without a fiat currency or without a kind of cryptocurrency? And I'm loath to say it, but cryptocurrencies are in a certain way that solution to that kind of global population size, moving away from a physical asset. There's just not enough physical stuff. That's my argument. And I know that might sound like a really strange argument as to why fiat currencies won't collapse. But if they did, there would just be not enough to go around. So that would mean there'd have to be some huge correction in world population. It would lead to a war. It would lead to world war. And I am a firm believer in human modern society. We have evolved. We've evolved emotionally since the days of world wars. And I know there are wars, and there's very, very horrible things that happen in this world. But a mass kind of extinction event, global extinction event, hasn't happened in that kind of global scale. The world has continued on despite the atrocities that have happened in the 20th century. And it will continue to do so, and the world will evolve. Money will evolve in its form to cryptos, or it will evolve in its form to, some form of fiat that is obviously not linked to gold and silver, like they are currently. Excuse me, losing my voice. Like they currently are not. So, You know, what does that all mean? Let's sum this up. What does that all mean? Let's put some good news on it. It means in relation to gold and silver as an investment, gold and silver as an asset, that they are, in my opinion, actually very good for the future. Now, I've talked a lot in this video about how they are not going to be good in the future. They wouldn't be used in that kind of dystopian world. There wouldn't be enough to go around. If you were one of the lucky few that survived one of those population corrections, maybe it would be okay. But my argument here is that as population grows, as the population of the world goes up, the ratio between amount of gold and silver in the world and the amount of people goes down, which means that the relative rarity of silver, of this shiny silver stuff per person, diminishes, and that makes it rarer, that makes it more valuable as that asset, and for those very reasons, for that kind of protection, for that wealth preservation. And that is essentially why I invest in silver, because I see it as an asset which will continue to hold its value. It is not going to make me millions of pounds. It is simply going to preserve the money which I have today that I want to keep and hold in the future, because fiat currencies will continue, and they have already devalued. This week alone we saw a huge devaluation of the pound. So a lot to think about, and I hope you've enjoyed that kind of meandering ramble. In summary, basically, gold and silver, I think, will stand the test of time, but they won't stand the test of time as a currency. I don't think we'll ever see them back in that kind of barter exchange system again. It's just not, in my opinion, likely. Of course, I could be wrong, and I'd love to know your opinion, so please do comment down below with your thoughts and opinions on this, what I think is a very interesting topic. And if you enjoyed the way that I presented it, if you enjoyed the slow meandering ramble that I've taken around this topic, then make sure you hit a thumbs up on this video and share it around on your social media. That would be very helpful indeed. And if you want to see future videos like this, or if you've got a future topic which you think would be interesting for me to have a good old ramble about, then please do let me know by hitting that subscribe button and also commenting down below. And if you are already subscribed and you'd like to get notifications when I upload future videos, of course, make sure you hit that alarm bell. Otherwise, a massive thank you to you all for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you once again, and please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.